Welcome, welcome, everybody, to Help the Helpers on this cloudy February cold day in New York. And I hope it's warmer and sunnier where you are. And we have been anticipating this day and looking forward to it in this series of how focusing can help us to say the unsayable and talk about the untalkaboutable. Can you say untalkaboutable? Well, we will this morning. We will be talking about politics and all that goes with the social political scene. I was recognizing yesterday that in some places people talk about politics all the time, and it's a very natural part of life. Here in New York, people will talk about politics with great vehemence and great passion with their own like-minded little groups. But in regular conversation, where there are people with different views, nobody can talk about politics because it will just either be a silence or a fight or one of those kinds of debates where you're fighting about facts and nobody ever gets anywhere. So for us here in an international community, we want to see how we are about politics. And this group has been together for almost 6 years now. I can't believe it. Almost every week for 6 years. And we've learned quite a bit about using focusing to have open and personal and carrying forward conversations. So with this subject that can be very fraught, all of us have, most of us have deep feelings about what's happening in the world. And it's very emotional and visceral and very important. And we're going to see the fundamentals of how we talk about this dimension of life together. And Isabel is the perfect person to lead us in this conversation and to help us to frame it in such a way that, like we did with religion, that we're not announcing our opinions and trying to convince other people to believe what we believe, but we're speaking from our own experience and speaking to the rest of the group, remembering that it's an international, intergenerational, inter-everything group. And so welcome, Isabel. Isabel is has been really her whole life working to make these conversations fruitful and genuine rather than hushed or bombastic. So here's Isabel.
Good morning. Buenos dias. Let me just put a disclaimer. Uh, Lindsay, that I tried to make this conversation not bombastic. I think bombastic is my middle name. I think my whole name is Isabel Bombastic, and whatever else goes into that whenever I'm engaging something. But what I want to invite today is an opportunity for dialogue and an opportunity for see how conversations around politics live in our bodies. And so I'm going to be bringing in some lived experiences from each of us into our own bodies. Let's start with a body center, experiential. And if you can find a comfortable position that would sustain you for the next maybe 3 minutes or so, and it doesn't have to be nothing special. The body already knows what it needs, so you don't have to, let me see if I can put my feet up or do this. Whatever it is, just a position that feels supportive, that feels that it can be sustained for the next 2 minutes. And you don't have to do anything with my voice. If you listen to it, it's okay. If you don't listen to it, it's also fine. But the important thing here is going to be to be present to your own body, to your body. And just start now by taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. You already know how to breathe. You've been breathing since the moment you were born. You're not learning about breathing today. So whatever that looks like for you, 3 breaths or 2. And just noticing how that breath is coming in and how it's exiting your body. And if politics was a something that could be touched, that could be seen, if it had a shape, if it made a sound, and maybe if it had a taste, what would that be like for you? The experience of politics in your body through your senses, through your own sense door. Just allow that image to form. See what comes. Now thinking that image, whatever show up, and allowing it to go back, allowing it to sort of like clear away, just like water would dissipate through your hands, allowing it to dissipate and coming back to this space and taking a look around the square, the Zoom, and taking everyone in and knowing that what you experience is your own felt sense experience, that it's not going to be the same as anyone else. Just take a look and already holding that everyone sitting here today, it's sitting here with something about wanting to know more or wanting to be different about what politics means. So come back and just really take a look around, like really spend time looking at people in their square. And if their face is not there, and I know we know each other for a long time here, see if you can imagine, even if they have their video off, what their face look like. Just noticing that. And so it begins, as they say in Sex and the City, right? Watched it, didn't care for it, but I love that opening. And so it begins, right? And so for us, so it begins in this way. I'm going to read a poem, and then I'm going to say a little something about that poem. And that's going to be what starts our conversation. there's no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world, and we all carry scars and have cuts, wounds. This space seeks to turn down the volume of the world outside and amplify the voices that have to fight to be heard elsewhere. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be ours together, and we will work on it side by side. And I'm going to drop an image in the chat of that poem. And there it is. Just take a moment to notice the language, notice the image. And then I'll share a little bit about this. If you need to get it out of the chat so you can make it bigger. But I really want you to look at this piece. So this poem has made a circle of every place I ever been. And it was attributed to a woman by the name of Mickey Scott Bay Jones. It's a whole name, Mickey Scott Bay Jones. And in the early 2020, she actually admitted that she plagiarized this poem. And people still attribute it to her, people who don't know. And the person who actually wrote it, her name is Beth Strano. And she does a lot of work with the immigrant community. And this poem was not titled. It didn't have a title. She didn't title it. And the picture that I dropped was actually written by Beth. And I don't know if you can notice there's a door there and it has two locks, right? I don't know if you can see it because it's a picture. And one lock, it's like a padlock. And the other lock, it's the one that we, I guess, used to get in and out of doors. And the reason why I picked this poem is precisely that. Because there's a lot of politics around cancel culture. There's a lot of politics about who owns who says who says what. And I thought that this is a great way to begin this conversation about politics. And in this poem, the invitation is to not a safe space, but actually a brave space. And it takes bravery, courage, compassion, empathy, and kindness to be able to engage in conversations that are difficult. I think that Lynn is calling this series that it's the unsayable, and that's about politics, religion, finances, sex, and I think yesterday Lynn offered death. Right? Those are 5 places where the conversation gets really difficult. And so when I first found out about this poem, I was torn. I was devastated. Because the woman who the poem had been attributed to is a Black woman who called herself a doula activist. Right? And she is amazing in her own right. And so just to put a bookmark here, both Beth and Mickey have been doing restorative justice work with each other around this harm. And I don't know where it's at because I'm assuming they're doing that privately. But there's people out there that are still attributing the poem to Mickey. And few people know where it came from. And again, the reason why this was so poignant to me today is because in my own space, politics can be that way. Someone can bring something forward, and then we all follow it. We all go after that. We all join it. I love what BJ said. I think it was last Wednesday. The ideology of what that person means to me becomes stronger than anything else. And anything that anyone says about what that person believes or actions are, it's a personal affront to Isabel. I take it to heart. And so when I first found out about this, I was devastated. As I say, was a Black woman. And so here's the piece about identity politics. So within politics, we have identity politics as well. I show up as a Black woman, as a Latina woman, as a lesbian, as a mother, as an activist, as a clinician, as a grandmother. And so I was devastated, especially you know, in the moment where cancel culture was so vibrant and so alive. And I had to sit with this for myself a bit because I have to check in. What was it about this that was so hurtful to me? I don't know either one of these women personally. And what arose for me was that I felt like, oh my God, a Black person is doing this. But that Black person is not just a Black person. That Black person is me. And so vicariously, I take on that it's a to usurpar a alguien, like make believe you're somebody you're not. And so that was really something for me. And then where that took me to, and this is the part about the politics, and we'll do this one together. It's where did I begin to have these beliefs and ways of relating to politics. And so we're going to do another experiential, and this one we will share it in the chat. See if you can track. When did you first became aware of your own politics? When did you first become aware of your own politics? So that's one. And two, who was the voice of politics in your family? Who was the voice of politics in your family? And the last one, looking back to that first time that you were fully aware of your own politics, has that shifted today? When did you first become aware of your own politics? Who in your family was the voice of politics? And since your first awareness about politics, has that shifted? You can come in and unmute and share if you feel comfortable, but I will share. I was 8 when I first became aware of my own politics. I was living in the Dominican Republic, and we were living under it wasn't called a dictatorship, but it was a dictatorship of the Presidente Balaguer. There was a lot of social injustice and a lot of repression that was going on, and people were losing their life. And I was in school, I was 8, and my school used to be across from a university. And the students from the university were demonstrating because, the economy was bad, people didn't have work, people were getting killed because of their political views. And I remember they were burning in my country. When you demonstrate, you burn tires. That's what you do. You throw rocks and you burn tires. That's part of the administration. And I remember leaving my school in the Dominican Republic, or not like here, they don't have like gates and stuff, and going on the street and joining at 8 the student from the university. And of course, we were not met with kindness. We were met with smoke bombs, tear gas, batons, whatever. And, at that point, everybody's just running for their life. And when my aunt found out that I had left school and joined that, I got the only other beating, not from the police, but from my aunt. And so that's at age 8. And already I knew that there was something about injustice that just wasn't okay. I didn't have the language to understand and know what it was. And then the second piece is the person that represented politics in my home was my father. My father left to the United States in the mid-60s as a result of that same government that I'm talking about, Balaguer, because my father was an activist and he was organizing and unionizing the public drivers of the car rental. And so his life was in danger, and he left in the middle of the night to Puerto Rico. Undocumented. He was an illegal. He went to Puerto Rico and he was undocumented. And I didn't see him for 7 years. And my father could barely read. He had a 3rd grade education. But he could talk politics to no end with anybody. So fast forward, when I became fully aware of my own politics, is when I started college, and I started to do my FAFSA, my application for financial aid. And I had to choose, I have to mark in that financial aid my race. Up to that moment, I didn't know I was Black. I was just Isabel, Dominican Isabel. And I had to mark something. And then underneath we would say, well, are you Black? And then there was another session that would say, are you Latino? And then there was all of this little breakdown, but there was no Dominicans at that time because there wasn't that many Dominicans. I think that they fixed that later on. You can either mark yourself a Mexican or Puerto Rican. And I just sat there perplexed by that. And at that moment, I knew that there was also something else that I had to embody. And so those were my 3 solo. I don't drive, and if you know me, you know that I love driving analogy. Those were my miles marker in my life about politics and who I was in the planet and how did I move through. So I want to just pause here and check in on how you are. So Charles wrote in the chat, No one person represented politics. We had political discussion at dinner with different points of view. In Spain in the 1950s, I lived in Franco's dictatorship, and I became aware that it was not safe to say I did not like Franco. I was 12 or 13.
Mm.
At a very early age, we begin to know that politics is something you don't talk about. You don't talk about. I knew at 8 that I couldn't talk about Balaguer. Not on the street, not to anybody. I knew at 8 that I couldn't talk about that.
That's interesting. No, thank you so much. I invited myself, or your invitation. I first learned politics as the firstborn son to Sam and Bessie Washington, and having a sister, and the politics of that family, learning at an early age how to navigate between the two parents who were the authority, and then my younger sister, and how I related with that. I I'm African American. This is my 70th year. Both my parents, myself, we were born in the era of Jim Crow. My parents knew people who were lynched while they were in college. So politics was definitely discussed in our household, despite the fact that my dad was an officer in the military. I was born in Germany. And the impact of being an African American dependent in Germany brought politics at a very early age for me. Because in Germany, I was just like I was in America. I was pointed out because of my skin color. I was pointed out because of my dad's position. So that grounding of politics, oh my gosh, we talked about it in elementary school. We talked about it at the dinner table. I will say that when my father came back from Vietnam, the politics got really intense because I was coming from a Black Power movement kind of piece. And they were in a more civil rights, let's kind of do this in a peaceful way. And I'm at that point, like, we got to tear this down. So thank you. Really brought me into where my foundation was and then how it opened up even further.
So I'm curious if things have shifted for you, because we are in a continuum. We don't hold one political ideology through our lives. Things either shift, change, or there's something there that happens and the needle moves. Have things shifted? And if so, what has changed?
Yeah, absolutely things have shifted. Um, gosh, I've delved in the politics of civil rights, of Pan-Africanism, of Black nationalism, of Marxism. All of those have come into play as I've developed. And then bringing spirituality, bringing practice that they call mindfulness now, but just indigenous practices, and bringing that in a political way. And then I realized something that Fred Hampton, former member of the Black Panther Party who was assassinated by the Chicago police and the FBI, one of the things that he said, and I'll never forget it, to breathe is a political act. And so I've come to that place. Yes, I've shifted that. Yes, my breath is a political act. And even though I got people who tell me you should breathe through your nostrils and breathe out your mouth, you should breathe this way, you should breathe that way, my breath is going to come however it comes. That's how I've shifted.
Mm, mm. You can just unmute if anybody wants to come in. I know people are typing in the chat, and this is from Henry. In my early teens, I and my family became fond of the then Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme, a social democrat. He spoke a simple, relatable language with views in favor of the masses in most authentic way, and became popular because of that. He was later assassinated in 1986, apparently because of his strong opposition against apartheid in South Africa. So again, this is another place where we can clearly see that politics is not something you talk about because it can cost you your life. So we know that. Something in our body knows that politics can be a risk to talk about it openly, right? When I went to Spain, someone said to me, you can tell a lot from a society by visiting the cemetery. Do they want to hide death and bury people on the ground? Or are they open about it and bury them above ground? And I had never thought about that. What are the ways in which we bury our politics or carry them forward? Like I have now started to wear t-shirts because I am too tired of talking about politics. So it's either a t-shirt that says fight like Malcolm, right? Whatever it is, but I am tired sometimes. So just wanted anybody else that wants to come in and share.
I think I can share here. My first recognition of politics was, I don't know how old I was, maybe 8 also. And I was sitting with my father watching the McCarthy hearings, and my father was cheering for McCarthy, and he's a real American, and we have to get these commies. And I remember going to the MacArthur parade with my father, and the feeling of the confetti um, and the celebration. And it wasn't until I was in college that I began to sort of think about, well, who is this McCarthy? And what is it that my father is sort of raving and ranting about? And when I kind of considered it as an adult, and I felt like, wow, a lot of people were terribly damaged by McCarthy, and what was it that he was standing for? It was very disillusioning in a way, because I idealized my father, and he was so passionate about the right versus the wrong, the good guys versus the bad guys. And then I sort of felt like, well, maybe these good guys that my father loves are the bad guys for so many other people. And how do you even know? And all along, my mother was very disdainful of the whole political discussion, because she thought it was all craziness. And I have that in me too. So I think what I discovered there was that politics is so complicated. And if my father didn't know the good guys from the bad guys, then I thought, well, maybe nobody knows the good guys from the bad guys, or maybe there aren't good guys and bad guys. And forming my own opinions seemed very, very daunting. And I didn't want to just go along with the crowd, in the late 60s and 70s, um, without really thinking about, well, what does this stand for? Do I uh, do I really believe this? Just because these people that I respect believe it, I don't know if I do. And I started in college, I started a group called, this was a Christian college, Christians United for Racial Equality, CURE. And it was my statement about, well, I know this. I know that racial inequality isn't right. And these students from Africa and other countries and are Black Americans shouldn't be discriminated against. And I could stand for that. And I could go on marches and things like that because it was very clear to me. But other things, even to this day, it's like, well, what do I really think about this or that? Or do what is it like to think from another point of view about it? And I don't know if left me um, it's left me skeptical of going along with the crowd, even if the crowd is the crowd, it's my crowd.
Thank you. Anyone else? I want to read something that someone else wrote because even if you don't, so this is the thing. We need to give voice, right? So we just noticing how this sort of like silence about politics, it's ingrained. It's actually expected. Go ahead, Astrid.
I want to come back to your initial impulse. You asked us about the felt sense in our body when around politics, and I want to say I was surprised. I had many felt senses. I had a felt sense when I'm part of a discussion in the Green Party or the ecological movement. What are we going to do? How we are going to inform people? Then I have a felt sense like this that is pulsing. When I'm listening to certain kinds of news, like Trump in Davos, stuff like that, I just go, oh my God. And it takes me a lot of focusing work to get grounded. And I can relate to your poem a lot where you say there is no safe space. This is very deep, very deep. So it's like I have different felt senses for different ways of relating in politics or relating to issues. And I was surprised. I did not know that before you asked that question. So thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, but I invited actually all of the felt senses that sound, right? Sometimes just hearing the voice of someone in politics would send me into a tipsy. Then sometimes I have a taste in my mouth about something. Sometimes it's I see something. And sometimes even though I'm not touched directly by something, I feel it in my body in such a way. And Lim was a witness to this for me on Thursday. I was boohooing as if someone had died. And um, Henry and then Liz, go ahead.
Yeah. I had a thought about why I got so fond of Bernie when I came to US whenever he started speaking, and I realized he spoke a message very similar to this prime minister in Sweden when I grew up in Sweden that I got attached to early on. And I had never thought that there is actually a link between the two of them, how they present themselves. So that's one piece. The other piece I wanted to share that I thought was also interesting. When I was 14, I got to see this guru who was visiting Sweden. And as he spoke, there was this clear resonance inside that this is what I've been looking for, even that without knowing that I've been looking for anything. And just that resonance came without me really understanding why would I have felt like that about that person or his knowledge. And similarly, I think with Bernie, that's been this clear resonance that I may not be able to fully understand, but maybe part of it is the authenticity that I saw in the Swedish Prime Minister. But it's just this resonance that speaks from within sometimes that I find intriguing.
So I appreciate Henry, because what you're bringing in, for me, is this sort of like, I feel an affinity to someone that may remind me of someone else, but also an affinity and a connection that makes it easier for me to be in alignment with whatever they, even before I start reading about what their opinions are, there's something that speaks to me, that resonates for me, that gets to my core. Yeah, yeah. So it's a felt sense, all of it. Go ahead, Liz.
Oh, hi. I wanted to answer the question about when did you first become aware of politics? I've been sitting with that. And I think it was in 1956 when I was 6 years old and there was a presidential election, President Eisenhower against Adlai Stevenson, who was a very much more liberal candidate than President Eisenhower. And my parents told me that they were voting for Adlai Stevenson. And I remember I was really scared. I said, "You're not voting for the president?" Because I thought the president was like the father, that he was the president because, almost like a king or divine, he was the president. And my felt sense at the time, looking back, was that Adlai Stevenson must be this terrible person to, try to almost assassinate President Eisenhower in a way to topple him, and kill the father. But then I learned things and understood that what something more about what that there were choices and that the president was there because the people chose him, or at least at that time it seemed that simple. Now it doesn't seem that simple anymore.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. And we forget these things when we first become aware of something. And I love what you're sharing right now. As a child, right? You're 6, and there's this kind of like, oh, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're not voting for the president. You like literally, this other person literally want to take them out. And again, these things just reinforce and reinforce how it becomes so difficult to talk about politics. And when you read the chat, because I know sometimes people, Parange Alistair writes here, politics was initially an spectator sport. My family and I had the privilege of observing from the side without getting involved. I just assumed my parents' political opinion and political passivity until around the age of 14, when I started to have some political disagreement with my parents. I became sometimes a dissenting voice in my family. In the last 35 years, I have become more left-wing, progressive on some issues, more conservative on others, on other issues, and also less strident. I have more appreciation of the value and vote winning benefit of maintaining and building human relationship more than winning debates. And I'll tell you what got me. What got me here is building human relationships got me. Right? And I am going to read another one, but let me just tell you, we can thank now Google for everything. And if you lean you can go to AI and ask ask all the question. But here's what Google says about politics. In simple terms, politics is the process of making group decisions, managing power, and deciding how to share limited resources like money, rights, and services in a community or country, often involving debate, negotiation, and conflict between different interests. It is how society organizes themselves, set rules, and govern from big national laws to local community issues. And I'm not going to drop this one in the chat because you guys can, in Spanish, we say googlealo, which has now become a verb, which is Google. So that's become a verb. And go ahead, Charles, and then I'll stare.
Not unmuting for me. Okay, now. I want to bring in a little bit here, whole issue of differences. And how painful it is sometimes not to have shared reality with another person. But sometimes what we do is we argue rather than stay in touch with our pain. This person thinks that Trump won the election against Biden. Me, that seems there's not evidence for. This person believes it. I realize that inside me there's a certain pain not being able to get a shared agreement about what's real, or just to have. And I think starting with a place of self-compassion for, gosh, this is really hard for me to listen to a person who has such a different view of reality. And just stay with that a little bit, so that not immediately argue, but stay with the pain of how it is painful, these disagreements. We can't find a way to connect with each other because the other person is a person. It's not just a political view. How do I connect with this person who sees things so differently? I want to bring that into this whole discussion of focusing and communication, and how do we live with this pain? And that's enough.
And we're going to do just that after Alistair share. Go ahead, Alistair.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to say that just as we have religious myths and cultural myths, one of the myths that well, I don't know if it's a myth, but one of the things that I'm aware of in my consciousness, and I think hundreds of millions of other people, is the World War II narrative. You know, that in politics, treat the other side as completely evil, no dialogue, no compromise with them, just fight them, kill them if necessary, kill as many millions as you have to until they surrender unconditionally. And I mean, I'm happy that the Nazis lost in World War II. And that sort of thing is not possible many times because we don't have the strength to do that. And in many cases, it's not appropriate, you know, because you and I might not agree on many things, but you're not as bad as Hitler, and I'm not as bad as Hitler, I hope. But that mythology, you know, that mindset of just kill them until they surrender, you know, it has a certain appeal as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to read one more thing in the chat and then we'll do one other experiential. This is from BJ. I wanted to visit a Hindu temple while traveling alone in northern India, and I was told by someone not to go because the Muslims were attacking the temple that day. Someone else said that I would be safe there because as a white person, I will be identified as non-combatant for either side. There was excitement and fear as I passed through the shimmering hot crowd that day, and a dismay that my skin made me safe. I did not want to be safe. That is also true that sometimes we have certain privilege, certain things that makes us safe in this conversation. Susan, I saw your hand. Go ahead. Not Susan D.
Hi, I think I don't know, the World War II thing somehow got something in me because didn't Chamberlain and all those guys want to make peace? And that was the thing that Churchill had to deal with because it wasn't working and they were going to go in and invade England and kill more people and take over. And it almost felt like there wasn't much of a choice. I don't know. Maybe that's just too factual for this discussion. I mean, the general idea, I like the general idea of like, are we going to fight to the death is there a place for peace? But I feel it's very complex to me.
And life is complex, right? If it wasn't, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And I want to appreciate Charles for naming that. How do we sit with someone whose views are not real? Because my views are the ones that are real, right? This is how I do it. And I think that the other person on the other side is also thinking, how can Charles be thinking that? That's not the truth. That the other person is thinking that, right? We'll do Mary, and then we'll do one more. We'll do Mary, and we'll do one more experiential. Because I really want us to, I think it's, Charles, when you say in a focusing way, how can we be with all of this, right? So go ahead, Mary.
I'm very wowed by everyone's comments and especially you, Isabel. Thank you so much. To be super concise, I'm a cousin of Huey Long, who was a very flawed human being, but I feel like the social democrat is in my very DNA. And I very much honor what Charles said, but I want, if we can, to extend the spectrum of the pain to like those of the voiceless, and also my selfish wish to not have to witness horrible, horrible things and hold bigger and bigger and bigger things as a therapist. It's such a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So we're going to shift gear, and I think that this will be a piece for us to end with. It's the ending 9:15.
We're going to have breakout rooms
Okay.
in a couple of minutes, and then we'll come
Yeah.
back and talk about what happened in the breakout room.
So we're going to take this one to the breakout room so you can talk about it in pair. And I could go in a breakout room. So two things. One, yesterday workshop was great. I had to leave, but that's another story. And Dana shared something that I still sitting with. And this is what she said. Every news clip, every interaction, everything you're doing, whether you are at the supermarket, and I think she referenced the car wash. Again, another car reference, even though I don't drive. It's an opportunity to do focusing. That's kind of like what she said. Not in this many words. And so here's an opportunity for you to, in a focusing way, with curiosity, kindness, and this sort of like spaciousness around whatever arises. It doesn't matter what it is. Think about the headline from this week or last week or this year. that has really kind of like hooked you? The headline or the news piece that have really got you. Doesn't matter what it was about. And see if you can go into it with the same way of curiosity that you would go into as if this was your focusing partner. See if you can see the headline as a focusing partner. And what would be the conversation between you and that headline? What would that be like? And we want to embody this relationship between the headline and yourself. And what would that be like? What gets in the way of you being present fully with that headline? Where do you take the hit when you first see or hear that headline? Where does it hit you in the body? Is it in your belly, your head, the chest? And what's needed to create a harmonious relationship between you and that headline? What is needed? How can the two of you sit in the same room with kindness, compassion, and equanimity? And so we'll take that into the breakout room and in a focusing way, share it with our partner. And whoever's doing breakout room, I want to go into a breakout room, so I'm okay to go in.
Shall we have 3 people, Isabel, or do you want just partners?
I think it's better to do dyads, and so we can really be with each other, and just hold each other. And I really want you to think of a hairline that really got you. I have mine, and I still haven't been able to let it go. And I want to keep it company and see what it's trying to show me.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you all at 9:35. That would give us 20 minutes. Is that good? Or let's do 9:30. I think 15.
Yes.
9:30. So then we'll have time to share. And I'm going to have to go, so I'll see you people next week.
Welcome back, and let's just put in the room a few shares about what was that experience like to be able to be with the headline as if it was a focusing partner, a focusing partnership. And anyone can just unmute and come.
I will say a few words because I kind of got there early on in this phone call when we were supposed to notice if there's a felt sense relating to politics. And the first thing that came for me, like this bad taste in my mouth, and I as quickly got rid of it by spitting it out. And then I waited a moment, and then what appeared, what this was this nice, barren, beautiful scenery of Iowa trees. I've been out in nature here a little bit, and that's how I'd like to be able to be with the AG, the Attorney General, if I got to sit down and talk with her, as opposed to just quickly spit her out because I can't stand her. It was a very neat contrast between those two reactions. I just had to wait for a while, and then that peaceful came that I would like to not forget when I talk to people with opposing views.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did. So, I mean, I can't say enough that if we enter every interaction in that way as a focusing partnership and that kind of exchange, I think things will be different. Go ahead, Astrid.
Well, Isabel and I, you were in one group, so we were in one group, so you know what I will say, I guess. I wanted to say, I appreciate kindness, compassion, and equanimity, yes. And I feel I'm missing in the focusing community sometimes the dealing with anger, rebelliousness as life expressions which are worthwhile being accompanied in us to send something in us. And I just said for myself that kindling the constructive rebelliousness in me has allowed me to still be engaged and active and attentive to politics. And if there wasn't that rebelliousness in me, but only trying to have this equanimity, I may have become depressed. So I want to say, I wouldn't attack anybody for a different opinion. That there is the focusing partner bit, but also at the same time, I want to kindle that aliveness in anger and in rebelliousness, because that can bring about change as well. And so I just want to put that into the thought.
Thank you
Thank you.
for that. And so the firefighters in the forest, they do control fires, right? To prevent bigger fires from burning the forest. And so that aliveness, that passion, I think it's something that, yes, you should continue to kindle and tend to with the same three things, with compassion, kindness, and equanimity. So it doesn't just go right and set the whole thing on fire. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what we share. And this is a challenging topic, a very challenging topic. And I think that the invitation is to step in. And I say this to Astrid, we're reminding ourselves that the other person in the other side is holding views in the way that are true to them. They may not be true to us, but they're true to them. And remembering the humanity, and that's not always easy. That's my biggest challenge, and still we have to remember that. So I don't know what time we end here, but I notice it's 9:40.
We have another 5 or 10 minutes. Yes.
Okay. I want to be conscious and honor the time. Anyone else want to bring anything else in out of your share and your dyads?
Just that what happens to our bodies in a totalitarian situation it's different, and continuously focusing to understand how to hold and work with people is so challenging. Thank you.
Yeah, and if we can use our body as a barometer or a thermometer to see how we're feeling in a particular situation, it's really, I think, an indicator of how we move into a conversation, regardless of what the conversation is. I know my body when I am beginning to, I can feel heat coming into my body. I know I am going to be, I'm going to say something I shouldn't say. And so if we present to that, then we can be also present to the other person. Katerina, is it time for the poem from Dorothy? And also, can you say a little bit about the movie? Or do you want to say something, Dorothy? We dropped it in the chat before. We're going to re-drop it because if you came in late, you may not see it.
Yeah, there really is time. Just take your time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say to all of you, if nothing else from today, I am taking away. So I'm going to ask you to, for yourself, see what is it that you can take away. And what I'm taking away from today is that already there are people in the community, in the collective, who are engaged in this conversation. And I think that my wife likes to say critical mass. We have a critical mass of people who are like-minded, who are kind, who are compassionate, and who are equanimous, who can turn things around collectively. Whether we know it or don't know it, we are doing it just by the nature of doing the work that we're doing today, by sitting here and talking to each other in this way. There you are, Dorothy.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. I think one person who represents so much of what we're talking about and really found his voice and used it in so many strong ways.
Dorothy, can you speak a bit louder, please?
Sure. Thank
Thank you.
Bayard Rustin. If you haven't seen the movie, it's just called Rustin. You can get it on Netflix. It's a very, very powerful movie about him, and I learned so much that I didn't know about him. But this is a quote from him from the movie Rustin. Martin Luther King, with whom I worked very closely, became very distressed when a number of the ministers working for him wanted him to dismiss me from his staff because of my homosexuality. My activism did not spring from my being gay, for that matter, from my being black. Rather, it is rooted fundamentally in my Quaker upbringing and the values that were instilled in me by my grandparents who reared me. And another quote, which Isabel is bringing to us, and I'm not sure where it's from, Isabel, where the quote is from, but here are the words. For beautiful eyes, look for the good in others. For beautiful lips, speak only words of kindness. And for poise, walk with the knowledge that you are never alone.
So that's Audrey Hepburn, and I came across that quote from my daughter. And I found it, so that's the piece about always, for me, it's looking for words of encouragement and for what people stand for, regardless of what they're representing. Like I would never thought of Audrey Hepburn as someone that would be saying that, right? And so I keep that close to me because I love it. And so I think we end, and then I would say home is not necessarily an easy place to stay. Yeah. Thank you. Sophie, good seeing you. And just such a joy to be here in community. And you know, I would be remiss if I don't say this. I am because you are, and you are because I am. And that's a little bit of something that Dr. King says. We are all integrate woven together. And I cannot be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And so let's honor each other. Thank you.
Thank you.